welcome back to Zero Production Value Movie Reviews. As always, I am Hoernke, and today I'm going to be discussing the 2010 film Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Part 1, directed by David Yates. This is the penultimate film in the Harry Potter movie universe, and the last step before the final battle between good and evil, Harry and Voldemoort. It is very hard to judge this movie now that I've watched it again. I don't think I've seen this movie maybe since it came out. It's very hard to sit down and just watch this movie. I think when you sit down and just I just want something to watch, I'll watch a Harry Potter movie. I think you usually pick something from the early period of the film franchise, as they're just kind of neat self-contained little stories, and as you get towards the end, and as I've discussed in previous reviews, these last few films are really part of a larger story arc, and this one in specific is very much part of a whole. It is very much an incomplete work, and I know they can't just go ahead and release a 5-hour movie. That's just not gonna work. But I think it would have, in trying to judge this movie, it would definitely have served it as being just Deathly Hallows as a whole, rather than attempting to assess Part 1 as an individual and Part 2 as an individual. And especially the first part is always going to suffer because it's going to have the less dramatic moments. This was third at the box office in 2010, and it was also nominated for 2 Academy Awards for art direction and visual effects, winning neither. And we're now in the end game, a very different Harry Potter universe, a very darker Harry Potter universe. Gone are the childish renderings of yesteryear, the fun little kiddie adventures that they had in the early films. And our heroes are now pretty much adults in full and embroiled in this battle for salvation or destruction. They have no more time for school, and Hogwarts is lost to them for now, as they take up the search for these Horcruxes, which, as we learned in the last film, are these talismans, these magical talismans that contain pieces of Voldemoort's soul, and they only by finding and destroying them can they hope to ultimately destroy Voldemort. I don't know if they actually specifically say that, but that's pretty much what we're led to believe. They may explicitly say it, and I just don't remember exactly where. So as a narrative, this thing is all over the place. It doesn't really have, like we've talked about, it doesn't have a nice self-contained structure, and it's just basically plot points. It just proceeds through and then just sort of ends. And it's, not really the film's fault. It's just, like I said, it's serving a larger whole. The opening is very bleak. Gone are those, when Harry would open with the Dursleys, and there was this sort of funny thing as they really kind of kept Harry subservient, and this begins much darker, with the Dursleys actually abandoning their house and leaving and going off to parts unknown. And then we see Hermione actually wiping her parents' memories of her in order to protect them. That is how serious this has gotten. And Voldemort and his allies, by the beginning or very early in this film, have taken control of both Hogwarts and the Ministry of Magic. So Voldemort's dark cloud of oppression is descending pretty much everywhere. So most of the time we are traveling with Ron, Hermione, and Harry as they use their lone clue to try to find this one Horcrux. There's a lot of time spent to find basically one Horcrux, which is this locket, and that leads them to Sirius Black's brother. I think it's his brother or his cousin. I feel like looking it up. Regulus Black and the Black Estate, and then that leads them eventually to Dolores Umbridge, one of our favorite villains to hate, and where she currently is, which is at the Ministry of Magic. So they devote a lot of time to this infiltration plot in order to get in there, find and retrieve this locket and then destroy it. After we get that sort of mini adventure encapsulated, they end up seeking out Luna Lovegood's dad, which is one of the very few new additions to the cast at this point, played by Rhys Ifans. And he basically communicates to them what the Deathly Hallows actually are. I remember when I first read this, you think Hallows, and I'm always thinking that has something to do with school, like hallowed halls. Still don't know if I know exactly what Hallows mean, but here it represents 3 magical artifacts that, as the legend goes, would give the possessor, if they possessed all 3, a mastery over death. So we can see why something like that would be appealing to Voldemort, who would probably enjoy being the master of death. After that, there's a silly side plot again with, I hate when, like, there was another, was it Goblet of Fire that Ron went off on his own, all kind of mad at Harry for reasons, and eventually he came back, and in this one again, he gets upset and jealous at Harry and Hermione for reasons. I think we're meant to believe that the locket that they're carrying exerts like a force over them, and maybe I'm sure that had something to do with it, but to me, it's the whole Ron going AWOL thing is just sort of a silly, not essential side plot, and eventually he comes back at a very opportune moment. And then eventually all our heroes are captured by these scavengers. They call them snatchers. There's a lot of that in this movie. It seems like it's crammed with a lot of superfluous characters that had probably a larger role in the book, but don't get much play here because there just isn't the time. But yet they want to have them in there to kind of give a nod to the character. You know, like the whole wedding scene in the front seemed to be geared toward that, and that was sort of non-essential. And while it's nice to see Bill Nighy show up as the Minister of Magic, he's gone in a heartbeat. That seemed almost non-essential to some degree. In any case, like I said, so our heroes are captured, and they're taken to Malfoy's manor, where Bellatrix also is, and that serves to set up one of what could, I guess, be termed the film's climax, a sort of battle scene, as Dobby shows up to help Harry and his friends escape, which is successful, but then that also leads to probably one of the saddest casualties of the whole film franchise, and one which registered even stronger with me because I didn't even remember it until it right before it happened, and then I remembered, and then it was like a sucker punch all over again. And then to sort of cap off this sort of scatterbrained narrative, we are privy to Voldemort, who we had seen in snippets kind of through his connection with Harry, kind of searching for something this entire story, and it is basically one of the Deathly Hallows in the form of the Elder Wand, and he finally gains possession of it, or we believe he does, at the end of the story. So very much this is just sort of scattered, like I said. It's just sort of plot points going one to another. This film really sort of plays very much like an incomplete work, and that's because it is an incomplete work. So it's very hard for it to be judged on its own, and like I said, just because it's part 1, it doesn't get the good, juicy, battles and stuff that are come in part 2, or the resolution that you're going to get from something in a part 2. It's just basically a lot of negatives with no real structure to it. That being said, you can't fault it too much, because it is exciting. It does hold your attention. If you're this far, you're a Harry Potter fan, and you're going to find enjoyment out of it, seeing these characters and seeing them play out the action on screen, and you very much know that this is just part 1 of 2. It's really just meant to sort of, as a preamble, to whet your appetite for everything that's going to come in the final chapter, and that's basically what you just look forward to after watching this one. So for all that, I am going to give Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1, directed by David Yates, a B minus. Not that it's still a pretty good grade. It's not that this is a bad movie. It's just like I said, it's hard to judge it as an incomplete entity, and it doesn't really do a whole lot. And even at the end, the kids are kind of left, like when we leave them, like we have no idea what they're going to do, because they have no more clues, and they're kind of up a creek at that point. So I don't know. Onward towards part 2, the ultimate chapter, the final battle, and the end of Harry Potter. I love you. I appreciate you. Thanks for watching my movie review. I enjoyed making it. Like, subscribe, leave me some comments, disagree, agree. It's all the same to me. As always, I am Hoernke. That rhymes with turnkey. And this has been a production of Zero Value. Thanks for watching.